And that was that. They're like, yeah, you're not going back to school. And that was devastating because like I built a huge community of friends. Who am I? And that was like the beginning stages of this obsession for like personal development. I was squandering my potential. Am I energized? Am I calm? Am I clear? Or am I doing this from like survival mode? It's not always pushing through, never resting, never setting boundaries. That's when you're going to run out of energy. This game of entrepreneurship creates longevity. Like those guys win because they're not losing energy. They're revitalizing it at the same time.
I think a few weeks ago, so we've been knowing we're going to come to Bali for a while, and Paige was like, oh, Remi and Elise live here, like we need to go meet them. And a few weeks ago, you posted a LinkedIn post that I saw that was really, really cool, talked about your story. So pretty much on this episode, I kind of just want to like run through this post.
Okay, let's do it.
Because you kind of went through like your whole life in this post, and I would love to kind of go through it. So one of the things that, you started with, I came into this world not knowing where I came from, adopted at birth. Can you talk maybe a little bit about like, what was that like in childhood and how did that maybe shape you? Like, did you really, like, when did you figure out, I guess, you were adopted, and then how did that?
Yeah. I appreciate you opening that up. That was a vulnerable post to make. There's definitely some like emotions of insecurity after I did that, but for people that know me that are listening, like that's something I've been doing for years now. But yeah, man, I was adopted at birth by my incredible parents. I'm super, super blessed, I think like my birth parents, they were like teenagers when they had me and probably just weren't prepared. I haven't met them still to this day. I've tried to like reach out, just nothing really connected, but I think I remember like being at school. This was probably in like elementary school, and at lunch, just like saying to a kid like, "Oh, I'm adopted," and obviously my mom is black. She's like, "No, you're not. Like your mom's black." I think people just assume like when someone's adopted, like their parent like won't be the same race. But yeah, I mean, it like I can't say that like. Obviously, I've always had that curiosity as to like who my birth parents are, like where they are, what they're doing. But honestly, like my parents created such a beautiful foundation. Me and all my siblings are adopted. I have 2 other siblings older as well.
Wow.
And yeah, it just kind of has always felt like natural, But I think like when you get down to kind of the more spiritual or like chemistry side of a baby being removed from its mother from birth, like that sense of what's the right abandonment is kind of like something I've always struggled with, whether that's with friends, potential partners, even like in business, like things kind of falling through or being removed from me. So I know that's been like kind of a wound that I've like healed through and continue to heal through, but yeah, man, I think like we all have like, I think like those that are born with their same parents probably had like a much more clear understanding of who they were because they could like see that in their parents because they, but yeah, it's been an interesting like journey. As I've gotten older, I just like have really prioritized self-awareness to create that for myself. So
yeah, I appreciate you opening up about it. It was something I'm curious about, like the way you phrase it, especially of not knowing where you came from. So, I did grow up with my birth parents, but we moved around a ton. Mm-hmm. And so something I always think of is home. Like I don't have a home, right? Paige grew up in the same house from when she was born to when she left for college, right? And like she has a very specific place for a home. Mm-hmm. And me, home is wherever I am right now, like Bali is home right now. And so I was just curious for you if of not knowing like that side and like how that comes to be, because there's some parallels that are obviously very, very different. But I know in that post you put up that soccer kind of became one of those things that you clung on to pretty young, right? And sounds like you got to like a super high level and then decided to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we'll call it football since we're in Asia.
There we go.
But yeah, you see me smiling because the game brings me so much joy. I think to this day, like if I kind of had like the right guidance and like a regulated nervous system at that age, like 16, 17, 18, I think I would have definitely gone and played pro. But yeah, I started playing around like 3 years old. I remember my parents coming back from Europe with like a blue Manchester United kit, and my dad has always been a fan, so I just like fell in love with that team. And each year, from like the age of 3 to like 18 years old, I just get significantly better. And I mean, there's so many parallels to sports and entrepreneurship, right? Like those that are just like putting in the extra work and dedicated, passionate, almost obsessed, become the best. And so, yeah, like most of my identity growing up was like, got to a point of just like traveling for tournaments during the week after school, going to practice. I literally would like leave school early sometimes, like on a Thursday, just to like go travel for a soccer tournament. It was amazing, but obviously it was like extremely demanding as well too. And yeah, I think sometimes there would be like, there's a lot of pressure. I'm sure any athlete can kind of speak to that. Like, I probably didn't think about it at the time, but my parents were investing like thousands of dollars for me to like play for these teams, the jerseys, the tryouts, the travel. So, you know, there were some expectations, I think, too, from like a certain level from my dad of like, you step on the field, like you want to be the best that you can be every single time, you know, and obviously continue to reflect on like those mistakes and work on it. But yeah, like my senior year, we had a pretty like elite team. We ended up going to the regional semis. We were literally up, I think it was either 2 or 3-0 at halftime, and they came back and won. And they were like the #1 team in the nation at the time.
Wow.
That like they were stacked. This all boys private school in Columbus. And yeah, that kind of like capped the season. But we had like 13 seniors, grew up playing with these guys since I was like 6 or 7, which was really, really special experience. Our coach was amazing. Still keep in contact with him a little bit as well too. He's now won some state championships, but after that season, I went on to like be all-state, which was like an honor. But when this season ended, I didn't really know where to like put the energy, because I think I maybe was a little bit burnt out. I was playing club in the off seasons too for high school, so it's like all year thing. You probably go like less than a month without having some sort of like practice, which is insane. And we're not getting educated on recovery the way like pros are. Like if I love this interview with Cristiano Ronaldo with the CEO of Whoop. He's like, if I'm training for 2 hours, I'm recovering for 2 hours. Right? And like that kind of mindset, especially in this game of entrepreneurship, creates longevity. Like those guys win because they're not losing energy. They're losing energy, but they're revitalizing it at the same time. And so for me, I lost like the spark. After that senior year, me and my boys, like at the time, were just like drinking, partying. I'd already gotten to college. I went to the same university as my brother. I got in like literally within 2 weeks. It's like, what? You know, people are still waiting. I'm like, all right, looks like my path is already decided. Like Q3, Q4 in high school, stop trying, you know? So, but that like those years were so foundational. Like I was a captain my senior year. So, I like learned so much about leadership and just being a team player, driving performance for my teammates as well, and being able to handle conflict and challenge. So yeah, I'm super grateful, and shout out to my parents as well for just like dedicating like that time and energy for me to become that player.
It takes a lot. It's something. So my sister did like a lot of traveling for volleyball, and then I did everything for football, soccer as well.
Hell yeah.
And then
That's
I actually transitioned in high school. I also played like a little bit of American football.
Nice.
And then the freshman team, they just like had stations, and one of them was a tee, ball and a tee. And then everybody's kicked it, and I kicked it really, really far. And they're like, "You're the kicker." And so that became my thing, and I went really hard into that. And
Nice.
I'm very fortunate. My parents, like, we traveled a lot for that. You have to find like specialized coaches and different things for kickers, because like high school football teams, they have no idea
Of course.
what to do. Even colleges, like, they don't have kicking coaches, even pros. And eventually went to university for like a D2 university for kicking. And so I can resonate a lot with like the time and energy and a lot of the lessons that it teaches you. I think it 100% shaped like my grit and discipline and who I am today, like the backbone of why I'm successful for whatever I put in energy. Did you ever have a moment after that where you looked back and like regretted leaving the soccer and maybe not pursuing it in university? Or
Yeah, I mean, man, there are some moments here in Bali, where I got invited to be on like a first team for a community here. And me and my buddy, he's also from the States, David, we were like, should we try and like go pro out here? Like that dream like still kind of exists. I don't think the timing is right. We're both in early stages building our businesses. It'd be a huge pivot. Like, we've already talked about the dedication to do something like that. So, but yeah, when I went to University of Cincinnati, I made the club team, and I feel like I was well positioned to try and walk on at University of Cincinnati, but I was just too far gone as far as my priorities, like that level of freedom that I had, because my parents were definitely more strict. But once again, like, I can look back and be grateful for that like level of discipline they instilled. So once I got to uni, it was like, yeah, like Remi was just off the walls. And so I was on the club team, and then I just like removed myself because I was like, oh, this is cutting into my time partying and drinking. So.
And you talked about that in the post. You said you were introduced to Xanax, and I think your quote was like, 2 weeks I cannot remember.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was crazy, man. Like, there's a lot of people from my high school that were like the cooler kids that went to University of Cincinnati, and they were already like introduced to those level of substances then. And I somehow like was hanging out with that crew of people. And I'm sure for my ego, like, oh, like now I'm in with like these cooler people. And I remember my roommates, they're from Cincinnati, telling me like, hey, Remi, like, don't connect with this person and like buy Xanax from him. And I guess me being me at that time, just like a rebel, I did that. And that started this like arc of not really going to class, spending all my money on like partying, drinking, like was just really lost. Clearly trying to fill that void by numbing, So, yeah, it was crazy. I remember like driving back home for like one of the holiday breaks with my brother, and he was like, yeah, like you need to chill on this. And just no one could like get through to me, and so I had to learn the lesson the hard way. I came home after the first semester. Parents looked at my grades, called me downstairs to the kitchen, and that was that. They're like, yeah, you're not going back to school. And that was devastating because like I built a huge community like of friends. Like I made I wouldn't say they're like amazing friends now. I don't know what those people are doing. I'm in such a different place, but at the time, like, I was kind of the man, you know, to whatever degree that ego, you know, for the ego, that was such a great stroke. But I felt a lot of guilt and shame, like unworthiness, like, wow, my peers are going to be pursuing their degree. I'm back home. I have no idea what I want to do. Yeah, that was like my first like dark period in my life.
And I think, was it then that you decided to start your clothing brand?
So what happened was my parents like gave me like a Navy pamphlet, basically saying like, we think this is like a much better path based off your actions, especially with my grades. Like I think I had like below like a 2.0, like a 1 point something, and I would have to be on like the back to great plan or whatever. And I remember like I was Snapchatting like friends from Cincinnati that were still at the university, like telling them what was going on. And one of them was like, yeah, bro, I just don't see you like going into the Navy. And I feel like just seeing someone like kind of like see me for who I was, even if it was just like in a way that wasn't truly amplifying my life at the time, that made me start to like get really curious about like, well, what do I want to do? Like, who am I? And that was like the beginning stages of like this obsession for like personal development. It was like, fuck, man, like I was squandering my potential. How do I maximize it? Like, how do I actually like, I remember doing an interview. I was like 19 years old for my clothing brands. And I was like, yeah, like virtual is a movement for like my generation to like become the best version of themselves. You know, even then, but I think I was just so like traumatized from the decisions that I made that I was like, all right, let's be a light for the world and not show up in this way.
Wow. And so you create virtual. And I think I also saw in the post, like you were also working at UPS at 4 a.m. and some other jobs to be able to fund that. Can you kind of talk about that transition and like how did virtual come to be and eventually grow up?
Yeah. Yeah. In 2018, so a buddy of mine who now like, he's a videographer. He's worked with like Drake, Party Next Door, like really big guys. We grew up playing soccer together. And I saw on Instagram he was working on a clothing brand with this guy named McHugh. McHugh's like a huge soccer influencer. And the clothing brand was sick. It was like interstellar, like Star Wars, Star Trek vibes. And I've always been a huge fan of just like that energy of like futuristic. And I was like, all right, I see some people I know at my age working on something meaningful. And then two of my other friends that I grew up playing soccer with started drop shipping. And so I had multiple examples of people around me that were like building something within entrepreneurship and creating like more meaning for themselves. So I was like, all right, this could be like something I can do. Simultaneously, like I said, I get into like the Gary V like rabbit hole, Lewis Howes. I get on my notes page on my phone and I just start writing down like futuristic like brand names. And like, I guess I wrote down virtual with an I, and then I just switched it for a U. And after I came up with that and like did some concepting, like what is this? I hit up two of my former closest friends, once again, played soccer with them, pitched them the idea. They came home from college like after their semester ended and we built it in the summer, launched it off the ground. That was a fun period, man, because it was like being able to do that with two people I really cared about and care about was special. And then like going from idea to like production to marketing to like people actually purchasing, like that was a huge like thing to experience as a teenager at the time. So
while balancing other jobs and stuff to fund it at some point, I'm assuming, or it sounded like too, right?
Yeah, I was the first job after University of Cincinnati, I was a cook at this spot called Harry Buffalo's. It was like a sports bar and grill. Not a good environment. People hated their lives there. That was tough. Obviously put some money in my pocket. And then I had this girl that I was friends with. She went to my high school. She was working at UPS. And so I joined her like over there. And that was tough. That was like getting up at like 3 or 4 a.m. and like loading trucks with packages. And like if it wasn't done well, like the drivers would like yell at you. And I'm not someone that like will take shit from other people. So I'll like get snappy back. Obviously I've like controlled my emotions more, but that built, I guess, another just level of like grit of like, all right, this is what I have to do in this season. And I was going to community college at the same time. It's like literally I'd go to work from like 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then I'd have class, like a math class after that I failed like by like 1 or 2%, you know? So it was just doing what I could do to just make it happen in that season of life.
And what eventually happened like to the clothing business and everything there?
Yeah, I mean, I never eventually got to work on virtual full time. Like I didn't have like that level of financial like prowess and understanding of like managing and growing and margins and but from 2018 to 2021 I still like worked on it intensively. What really shifted things though was when I left community college. Parents were obviously not in agreement. A couple months later left home, got an apartment on Ohio State campus, got a job doing door-to-door sales, and that like getting into sales opened up like just an ocean of opportunity. Obviously, like we said before the pod, like something I did for 8 years. And like the beauty of working in sales is you start to learn the art of relationships. And so that was crucial in the door-to-door sales, which is insane. Like in the winter of Columbus, you're knocking on people's doors trying to sell them something they don't need. Mm-hmm. But it's all trust. So I was able to like be really, really good at it, but still it sucked and I wanted to make more money. So I took that experience and then I became a luxury car salesman. And that was the job that was like, this is sick. Like 19 to 21 selling luxury cars, like that changed everything for me.
Wow. And still doing like the clothing brand kind of during a lot of that. Did you know at that point in the long run, you're like, okay, I want to fully do my own thing, like the clothing brand or something else? Or were you still kind of open to whatever came to you and like, I'll take a good 9 to 5? Like, did you have that vision yet for what you wanted?
Yeah, the first few months at the car dealership, I was struggling because I was still so invested in virtual. Like I wanted, like you said, like I've always wanted to be like a founder, entrepreneur. Like every job I've worked has been like a vehicle, I guess, to be where I am now. But I had a moment where I almost got fired at the dealership because I like came in late or called off so many times because I was like outside of work, doing the clothing. And a big thing we were doing at the time, we would sponsor events for this event called Space Camp. Space Camp was this EDM dubstep event. We did all the clothing every single month, sold out each month, but it required like a lot of me. And it was not like the greatest like people as a teenager for me to be around. There's like a lot of like close, like people doing drugs and stuff late nights, 3, 4 a.m. I'd be like in the club, you know, underage. So I like remove myself from that. But yeah, like it's always been like virtual has been my baby.
And then I saw you pivoted, what is it, into tech at that point?
Yeah, I mean, like, so basically like I had my previous partner, my ex, met her, and like that kind of started a completely different like chapter and just like have to, give her flowers and praise to like really special human being. She like gave me the space to really grow. Like we moved from Columbus, Ohio to San Diego, and I'd never lived anywhere else. It was a huge jump. But when we like started dating, like some of the passions I had started to go away, and virtual was one of those. I stopped working on virtual after coming back from this trip in Denver where we were doing some photo shoots with people out there. Still to this day, I'm unsure why I stopped working on it, because we created so much momentum. We were one of the top streetwear brands in Columbus. I was just fully immersed in that community. But yeah, then I like up and left all my friends, community that I'd built, started from scratch, didn't know anyone in San Diego. And so that's how I ended up getting into like the Web3 and crypto space through recruitment.
And that was, so now you're kind of back in the 9 to 5 side, and maybe visions in the future of getting back to becoming like an entrepreneur or something.
Yeah. The first job I had was like doing recruitment. It was like in office. I mean, I crushed it there when I first started out. Like we can obviously like LinkedIn. This is when LinkedIn became very prevalent for me. I built a really strong personal brand, kind of built off of the posts, like the type of posts you're talking about. I don't think I was that vulnerable online at the time, but I was still very vulnerable and curious and excited about the industry. I think a lot of people were also excited when I was like expressing that. And so recruitment is like, you're just building relationships. Like that's what you're doing every day. The more calls you're on, the more people you're meeting, the better opportunity you'll have of like placing someone. So I just like went a million miles deep in the industry. Was a part of it for 4 years. Didn't love the company that I worked with. I'll be quite honest. Like the culture just wasn't a fit for me. There are a couple of people I got to meet there that were super genuine, but it felt like restrictive a little bit versus the next job that I got, which was at Proof of Talent. And that was life-changing opportunity for me.
And I feel like I'm starting to see a pattern for you, because you do seem like an ultra connector in a way. Like from starting virtual, you kind of reach out into your network. And then from there with like the door to door, you kind of see the sales and just how to work with people. And I know from like our previous conversation as well, here in Bali and everything, would you say that's kind of one of your superpowers, is like being this like big connector of everybody?
100%. I appreciate that mirror and reflection. Yeah, like it was cool when I worked in Web3 the first couple of years. Once I started meeting people that I really liked and were genuine, I had a list of 15 people, and anyone new that I talked to that I felt like I could support them, I would like send them the list and be like, hey, like let me know if one of these names on here you want an introduction to. So I would constantly, even if I couldn't help someone find a job, I'd make sure they lead with something. Like it was like basically being able to like connect, okay, this person has this background and this interest, this is where they're going. What person in my network could also benefit from this relationship, and just like make sure they cross paths. And so that's like kind of a double XP networking effect, right? When you're doing that, because now your network is like becoming connected. They're becoming friends. And so they'll like look back to you as like, wow, like, yeah, I know this person because of you, man.
And it's like a long-term game
Yeah.
with that. But I guess if you're always leaving somebody with something, they're only going to have something positive to say about you, and that just gets your name out there more and more. At what point did you guys decide to move to Bali and to kind of be nomadic?
Yeah. I left Proof of Talent in February of 2025, so last year. Bali's been on the radar for a few years. Like, this place from the outside looking in was like, this is like paradise, like heaven on earth. Very much so. I've been able to experience that richness here, but it was on Elise and I's 1 year anniversary that I was like, hey babe, like there's nothing holding us back anymore. Like let's go all in on like this life we're creating. I booked a one way that day. She wasn't quite ready. I'm kind of just like, I can move very quickly. Once I want something, I'll just make it happen. That was a huge move for her. She wanted to make sure she had all of her like finances and everything back home, like just like taken care of. But yeah, that was huge move for us.
And was it something that you had both had in like the thought process of you wanted to travel for a while, or was it sounded like an instant decision from you? Was it also something like on her list, or did you maybe influence that at all?
Yeah, I think like when Elise and I first met, our first like, you can call it a date. That's basically what it felt like. We just talked about this vision of like, all right, like I want to travel the world. I want to inspire other people. I want to create beautiful content. And so, you know, I think we both influenced each other a lot of just like, let's go see like this planet, you know, and experience different cultures and let our energy like impact the world. And so I've kind of like led the way on different locations we've gone to. Like we've been to like Portugal, Tulum, and then now like, yeah, Bali's been the longest place for the both of us that we've lived internationally.
And realizing that, I know we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but kind of coming back to that, how was it like at first and to now? Because I feel like, did you follow the typical maybe nomad journey of at first it's incredible, but then it's maybe hard to get into like a routine and lifestyle? Was it pretty different for you guys? Did you venture right into like what you wanted to do with entrepreneurship? Like what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, talking on like the business side, like we kind of talked about virtual. Virtual's been my baby since 2018. So I knew exactly like once I left my company, I wanted to like rebuild that brand. But there was just like not enough clarity on like what exactly that would be. Like at one point I was trying to build the clothing, the retreats, and a membership at the same time. It was insane. You know, I was driving myself crazy, and I didn't even have like the finances to like, or the team to properly support that. So by the time I got out to Bali, I decided like, all right, we'll do the coaching. We'll start with that. That's an amazing way for me to show other people that I can create transformation for them. But yeah, when I first got to Bali, man, it was insane, bro. Like Elise wasn't here yet, but like just like the nature, the beauty, like, and that's still like one of my favorite parts, but like even the communities of people I got to meet, the villas I was staying in, I was definitely paying way too much for not having any money come in. So I learned a hard lesson there. Yeah, it was insane, bro. But then like, I think shortly after, like, then like the pressure started to cement of like, oh shit, like I'm not getting money. Like my bank account's running low. Elise is going to be here soon. Like, yeah, I felt like things started to like kind of like cave in a little bit. So that took a little bit out of the enjoyment away from the experience because it was more so like survival. But yeah.
There's this weird part of it when you start to travel and go to a place like Southeast Asia where you can afford so much more for less. So at first, like maybe you pay the same amount and you're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then you see, wait, I can pay a little bit more and have this huge villa to myself and live like an absolute king. Well, why don't I just pay a little bit more? You know, that's nothing like compared to what I would be paying from the US. Like, let me experience this. And I definitely had this, but early on with nomading, I had the realization and saw it in friends that if you aren't mindful of it, you're going to start to just continuously like increase that. And especially when you travel from like a Southeast Asia to a, Europe or something like that, where the prices go back up a little bit, still not maybe as high as the US, but then you get used to this certain level of comforts and quality of life. And then it's really hard to go back down. So it's like this weird balance of, it's really awesome to experience it, and you probably should for a little bit, but then remembering to come back down as well. It's this like weird thing that I think that a lot of people can fall into.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I've been humbled out here, to be like pretty straightforward. Like, grew up, like, parents were extremely abundant, did great for themselves. Like, even like when I was staying at the car dealership, I was making like 6 figures at like 19 years old. Like, I didn't even know. I would just like put a ton of money in my savings just because, like, I was so grateful. Like, I moved out to San Diego like with like 50 G's. Like, I was like feeling like the man, but like blew through that money then too. And yeah, I came out to Bali, and like a big thing that appealed to me here in Bali was like the architecture and design. Like, I'm a huge, especially like a home. Like, I love Tulum because it's similar. Like, the architecture there is really special. So I was like, oh, like, there's some villas that I was like looking at before I came out here that were like super expensive. Like, same I would pay in the US, but out here like super expensive. And so I had to learn the hard way, and I think sometimes like that's gotta happen so that you can build a stronger relationship, like with finances, with discipline, like whatever it may be, whatever hard lesson you're learning. And now, like, whenever I go anywhere else, like, no, like, I don't need this. Like, we talk about the legacy. It's like, is this supporting the goal? At the end of the day, like, do I need to stay somewhere that's like $1,300 a month, or can I stay somewhere that's like $200 or $300? As a new entrepreneur, what can that do for your business? How much more can you put into the business or save? Right? These are all things I'm constantly thinking about, because it's like, this is a long game.
Yeah, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself, right? And that's kind of one of the nice things about nomading, is you can go somewhere else and completely change the game. Because a lot of times when you're stuck with being in one location, it's like, okay, this is the amount that I need to make to be viable. And so maybe before, like, you were in virtual, you have to get a second job to do that, but then it takes you away from the main thing. Or maybe you make decisions to try to make money quicker, but maybe those aren't the best long-term decisions. But nomading can fully change the game, where it's like, okay, well, now I can go to this place where I can reduce my expenses in half, a third, less. And there are other trade-offs as well. I know, for me and Paige, one of the things that we've been thinking about is like, so when we went to Southeast Asia, is I was figuring out what I wanted to do, and then now just launched my business. So in the early stages, she's in more of like a building phase with hers as well. And so it's really great, I think, for that, and to like lock in and to be in focus mode, and you can start to save. There is a little bit, because we're also now in coaching too, of all of our clients are US based. So the networking factor of being back, but then does that equate to everything else, the expenses and everything? So I think it's an interesting experiment that we're kind of trying, and we're going to be there for 6 months. Going to try to be super intentional about the in-person, about the networking, like for the business and stuff like that. And we have other reasons to be back with Paige's family and everything. Mm-hmm. But it is this thing that you can't help but think about. It's like, well, this is going to be triple the cost of somewhere else. And so there's a lot of things that come with that. So it's kind of this little bit of this dilemma, I think, when you're a nomad and when you're choosing places. Because it can also almost be, I don't know if you've experienced this, it can almost be a trap as well. I think when you go to a place with so low expenses, like I see people that do it, and then it's almost like what's the smallest amount of money I need to make to be able to live somewhere. And you lower your bar, right? I don't know if you've experienced this or seen this at all, but it's this weird thing with being a nomad, right? It's like you're in control of all these different things, and you can be very intentional about it, but you can also lose yourself a little bit too, and it's hard to ask yourself and come back to that balance.
Yeah, it's an interesting like concept for sure. Yeah, I think like I don't know, for me when I hear you say you guys are going to Maine and like tripling the expenses, to me like as an entrepreneur, the more like optimistic or positive outlook is that's going to force you guys to level up in a different way, which I think is beautiful. Like I remember when I was living on campus at OSU, I was paying like $800 a month, or maybe less, maybe half that because I had a roommate. And then I moved into my own place that was $1,350. And I remember my parents were there, and I was making plenty of money to live there at the time. And they're like, yeah, you should get this spot. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, what about the price? But like, I'm so glad I did, because the environment elevated me so much. And actually Lewis Howes like talked about this in a podcast, the importance of the environment. Like, does it kind of support the person that you're becoming or the person that you want to become? Obviously you need to have like some discipline and guardrails as well too. You know, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're like, oh shit, like I can't afford to be here, you know? So I think it's a balance, but I think the exciting part for me as an entrepreneur is like, no, like, all right, my expenses might be like 1 to 2K. What happens when I'm making like 10 to 20K consistently? You know, that's when things will like be really fun, you know, because you can invest so much of that back into the business. And then also just like, if we want to pop back into the States and like spend like quite a few months there, like that opportunity is there. So
yeah, a lot more possibilities start to open up.
Yeah.
At that point, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's called the Reset Protocol.
Mm-hmm.
You're coaching. I think I saw you help high performers maybe push past certain boundaries and find clarity. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So I spent 4 years in the Web3 space, and we also talked about the sports, right? Been in high performative environments for a really long time. But what's allowed me to transcend burnout or lacking of clarity has always been mindfulness and stillness, prioritizing proactive recovery. And so the Reset Protocol is a program specifically for Web3 founders, leaders, and teams to slow down, reset their nervous system, and gain the mental clarity that's been blocking them essentially from making better decisions, enjoying their life to a more higher level so that they can show up more fully, right? And it's not the full transformation, it's a reset. It's the beginning stages that helps initiate better habits, better mindset, and most importantly, I think what a lot of people lack today is a safe space, non-judgmental, especially men, right? Like, there's a lot of pressure in these fast-paced industries. I mean, you have engineering background, you know, like you got to hit certain KPIs and numbers, but it's not always pushing through, working 14, 15-hour days, or never resting, never setting boundaries with your team. Like, that's when you're going to run out of energy. That's when you're going to have to take a retroactive recovery, you know, when you can be implementing daily habits that support the journey that you're on. And so, yeah, it's still early stages, but as you can tell, there's a lot of passion because I've lived through this so much. And I know, like, just the industry I'm working in, I know the problems really, really well. So,
and if there's a high performer out there that's thinking, well, if I am so wanting to achieve these goals and I'm not there yet, why would taking a break and like to reset actually get me there quicker? Because it seems very, very counterintuitive. It's like, no, I just need to grind harder, you know, to get there quicker. Why is actually taking like the full break and reset, how does that get you there even faster?
Yeah, I think like And we can even, like, once again, going back to that quote with Cristiano Ronaldo and just that interview he did, the dude was taking like 3 naps a day, you know, and that's obviously his own case, but he's training 3 times a day. The biggest thing, man, is like the quality of work that we do decreases when we're like constantly just focused on it. Like cognitively, our brain is overloaded. So we don't even have the capacity to execute in that flow state. So being able to offload that energy and just the information that we're constantly processing is crucial so that the decisions that we make are sharper. And so also too, it's just like, how do you want to feel? Like that's always been a huge North Star for me when I'm working on something, is it's like, am I energized? Am I calm? Am I clear? Or am I doing this from like survival mode? Because those different archetypes create different results. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I want to achieve a lot, but I understand though my body, my mindset, my energy is going to produce way better work when it's more clear and grounded.
Yeah, and I can resonate with that a lot. So when I first got out of college and my first engineering job, I think in the first 5 months, I only had 1 weekend off. And it was almost like I had to like take vacation for the weekend, you know?
Yeah.
And I did a lot of overtime, and at first it was praised. I got like the celebratory bonus. And then after that, I was like, okay, when you come in this weekend, it was expected. And then eventually it was just not enough. Like, oh, you're only coming in Saturday. Like you need to come in also on Sunday.
That's crazy to me.
And that's just what I thought I had to do. I was out of college. I didn't know any better. And I think at some parts there is validity to like working more and learning. But at the same time, I really wasn't putting out the best results, right? Like when I would do a 12-hour day, hours 10, 11, and 12 weren't the same as the quality hours, and actually decreased a lot of the other hours. And without knowing it, I sacrificed the things that for me were really important to have that energy, that clarity, like the gym and stuff like that. I was still figuring that out. And I'm very grateful for it, but it even got to a point where they basically sat me down and said, Grayson, you're not performing. We're going to have to move you to a different team. And like, if this happens again, we basically have to get rid of you. Mm. And to me, I was like, well, what the heck? I'm doing all this extra work and you still think it's not enough. So I was kind of jaded, but I took a bid, and luckily my next manager was very good with expectations, really good with teaching when you asked. And the manager really means a lot, I think. But I started to really take my time back. That's when I went into hobbies and other things outside of life. And when I look back into my 9-to-5 career of when was I actually the best employee, it was when I first started traveling abroad as an electrical engineer, because my outside life was awesome. And this company let me do that. And so I had a lot of abundant energy from my outside life that I was able to actually put into my work. So I was working less hours than I did when I first started. But now I am actually getting the results, and those hours are way more impactful. And so I can definitely see on the recovery. And, you know, nowadays I have all these different things that I know I need. Like, you know, if I'm like last month I was in a time of build. And so I was like working more hours than I have in a bit. But I know that there's still things that I can't sacrifice. And recovery was like, these are the things that I can't sacrifice. I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to do like cold plunges every day. I'm going to get good sleep, right? And on the weekends, I'm going to have one day I fully disconnect. No work, no phone, you know. And I know at some point, like after this initial grind phase, going to be taking like some more extended time off, because it's so easy to get in that hamster wheel, right? And all of a sudden you take a step back and like, oh wait, I wasn't going towards anything that I really wanted to. What are some signals that high performers can look out for? Maybe that they are just digging themselves deeper into the burnout hole.
Yeah, Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing your story as well. I think it's a beautiful, like you're a beautiful example for other people, other leaders of like prioritizing yourself, like most importantly, you know, at the core, like self-care, self-love, putting up boundaries. It's not something we were all like taught to do. So yeah, I feel like the work we're doing is like super important because it's a gap of education actually, and it can increase someone's enjoyment in life and perform at a high level, you know. But yeah, as far as signals go, like I guess for me, I've always like followed the feeling, right? I'm very intuitive, I'm very self-aware. Even like tightness in the body, right? That to me is like a big one. Like if I'm feeling like tight, especially in my like face or brain area, like that's like a good indicator for me that I need like a walk or like I need to water or like quick breath work. I teach breath work and meditation within each of my sessions as well. Like for burnout though, it's like you have like no desire, like you don't even want to show up to work. You know, like you're just fed up, you're over it. But it might not be that like it's the company or what you're working on. It's just like you don't have energy. So of course you're not going to want to show up for something. And I feel like this is how a lot of like newer founders too in their first couple of years like go from like this amazing vision and idea to, oh, we're like shutting down. Well, it's like there wasn't a lack of talent. There wasn't a lack of ambition. There wasn't a lack of execution. It was lack of energy, right? We're coming back to the same theme of like sustainable, right? So I've like 3 steps that I teach across the 3 sessions, right? The first one's the audit. So we look at the limiting beliefs and the limitations. And oftentimes it's the habits, like sleep. Are you getting movement? Like those 2 things, right, are huge, especially for the execution process. What's the underlying belief that you have? A common one is I'm not worthy unless I'm executing. I'm not worthy unless I'm creating output. Okay. So for me, like creating that safe space, being a listener, mirroring back to them. From there, we're like creating one non-negotiable that they focus on that's super small for the next 7 days. What's something very just small that can help you get back a little bit closer to yourself, right? The next step is the alignment. And this is where we take a holistic view of your life. On a scale of 0 to 10, we grade your finances, your business, your health, your environment, and your relationships. And this is a really like exciting one because it's like you can see right there in your life, like, okay, my health is at a 4 right now. Well, what would happen if that went up to like a 6 or a 7 or even 1 point? How much would that help you improve your enjoyment and execution? And the last step is the install, right? And that's where we help them create daily non-negotiables. Because for me, that's huge. Like for me, it's movement, meditation, outreach, right? For my business, posting. If I do these things every single day and not put like a crazy KPI on it, this is like a sustainable rhythm that I can follow that will push my business and my life forward. And it's going to be different for everyone, right? Like intuitively, people will know like what works best for them. But yeah, I think it's important to be having these type of sessions and conversations.
Very important. I love that 3-step process that you have. I want to go back to one thing that you said, which is like, I don't feel worthy because I'm not getting this like sort of output. I think it was something. That's 100% something I resonate with, and something I really struggle with is like, I have this whole, morning routine and like how I want my day to look and these tasks and then night routine. And if I don't do like one of those things, sometimes it's hard for me not to be like, oh, the whole day is lost, or I've been kicking kicking the can on this one thing with work right now, like coming out with my lead magnet. Other stuff have coming up and I've just had to push it off or been bad about prioritizing it. And I put a lot of like shame, I would say, on myself. So what is something that I can work on to try to, while there's some benefits to that, is because I hold myself to a high standard to then put out maybe more than the average person.
100%.
How can I better balance that so I'm not also putting myself down when, not every day is going to be perfect where I, hit 10 out of 10 things that I wanted to do.
Right. I guess for you, like, are these thoughts that you have daily?
It's a good question. Probably most days, even on rest days, it's like, well, I didn't rest enough. I didn't rest hard enough.
And when did you start like having these thoughts?
Years. Yeah, I've had it for a long time. Maybe even since like high school and everything, being in sports, being like a high achiever and in school and everything like that. So probably most of my life.
Yeah, there's just like this study that Joe Dispenza did, and he was like 90% of the thoughts we have are the same thoughts we had yesterday. And so to me, that is an indicator that most people are still living in the past. And it's not necessarily like you're doing something wrong or someone's doing something wrong to have these experiences. It's more so like, can I be aware that exists? That's been a part of me for God knows how long. Because you are such a high performer, you do want to achieve greatness. You're achieving greatness. You're living it. But can you also detach from like, no, I'm worthy right now. Like worthiness to me is a birthright. As soon as someone's born, you're worthy of receiving, of experiencing greatness, of having love. Like it really comes down to being able to like catch it, and that's why I'm a huge believer in like that stillness and meditation. Like when you are having those thoughts, like I feel like a quick tool is just like focus on your breath, like go for a walk. Walks for me are huge. And I talk to myself too on walks, and just like speak it out loud, work through it. Like, is that really your voice, or is that just like your mind trying to continue to keep you in that same place?
Yeah. All good things. I've been walking less since I've been in Bali. It's really hard to walk here.
Yeah, it is.
I was
just
on
gotta go to the beach, man.
I know. I was on a great meditation streak. I'm off that right now, so I think I do need to get back to that. So I appreciate those reminders there. Coaching, transitioning like into coaching. So you're a bit ahead of me, kind of on this side. How has that transition been for you? Like going from a high achiever, in an area that like your tech role and everything like that, or like the sales roles before, now coming in to the coaching side, just how of a mindset shift has that been for you, and how have you been able to work on that?
I think the business side of it has been the most challenging, as far as like maybe like client acquisition, because coaching is heavily focused on trust, right? Recruitment services, bro, anyone can get recruitment services because they don't get paid unless someone actually like executes, so it's a much easier product to sell. And same with car sales, right? People come to you to buy a car. With this, it's like there's a lot of vulnerability that you're putting yourself out there, but also it's about building the credibility. And that's like through case studies, testimonials, and sometimes that's the work that we avoid. And so I'm really leaning heavily into like when I'm working with clients, like we're charting the before and after. I'm using metric points to show the growth. But on the actual coaching side, like I'm very, like for me, it's pretty effortless in the sessions because I'm not like, depending on the coaching you're doing, you need to have like presence. you need to ask the right questions. You need to make someone feel safe. You need to have the structure for them to basically like uncover what are my challenges by themselves. You're just the space where they're flowing through that, right? But it goes back for me, like the 2018 with the personal development and virtual. This has kind of been my mission for, 7 years of like helping other people. So I've had a lot of experience, and I mean, I'm fortunate. My friends are yoga teachers, coaches. Like most of my friends are in this world, which is, I'm grateful. And they've shown me through their own actions, like, what is like good listening look like? Like just that alone, that skill of like being able to listen, and then like not like, because a lot of people when they're having a conversation, if they're not speaking in the time, they're thinking about what to say next. And so there's not, the flow doesn't feel as strong. And so that might prevent someone from like opening up a little bit more. But it's we're learning every single day, man. You know, like I think the product and the experience I've built is phenomenal, but now it's like the business side of it is like, how do I get this in front of the right people and continue building up that revenue and making impact? And for me, like, coaching is just like the first step, right? I'm on this journey building an empire, and the center of that empire is human potential. And so coaching is one of those like spokes, right? And you can kind of compare this to Disney. Disney sells magic, and they sell magic in like 5 different ways. Their amusement park, Disney Plus, all their memorabilia, clothing, their movies, right? And so for me, like the real North Star is to help as many people as I can within this year through the one-on-ones, also do workshops with teams, but eventually retreats, right? And events, working with people in person, bringing them to places like Bali, Joshua Tree, Iceland, where they can actually like feel the rejuvenation and the reset and do it with other people that are like-minded.
I love that. I love that vision. Something similar for me, I want to translate more into the in-person side. I think especially with AI, like that's the one thing that AI can't take away.
Yeah.
They can take this transcript of what you're saying and try to create a coach basically from you, but they can't create the in-person experience, right? And like the actual memories that you make, and the power of that is really, really big. You know, and just being around people, there's an energy around being next to somebody that's on the same journey as you, right? Like just having this conversation with you. I'm newer into coaching. I can just pick up a lot of things, you know, with you, and we can go back and forth. Like we were just like before we hopped into the podcast, like you and Paige with LinkedIn and everything. And so that is a huge thing that I'm curious about getting into when we get to like our time in the US and everything, especially. Remi, where can people go to follow you and to see what you're doing? Where's the best place?
Yeah, I primarily hang out on LinkedIn. Remington Langston Rodney is my name on there. And then my website, theresetprotocol.xyz. Keeping things simple, building 1 million miles deep.
I love it. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate your vulnerability with everything that we talked about, even, you know, from the get-go, talking about your whole steps with the business now and where you are. I love having these honest conversations of like this is the actuality of behind the scenes.
100%.
Last question for you is, why the dirt path? So I see you very clearly on the dirt path of doing things differently in life, right? Of, you know, you had like an interesting childhood where you had some like really big successes, and then it was like these down moments and you had to reinvent yourself a lot. And a lot of people, I think, maybe can just decide one time not to get up, not to reinvent themselves. But you've continued to do that, and you've hopped in all these different spaces. Now you're living in Bali with your girlfriend. You have your own business and everything. And while that has a lot of really special moments and things with it, it's also really difficult. There is no manual for kind of living a life like this. It comes with a lot of challenges, more so than if you just lived back in Ohio, probably with a 9-to-5 and never tried to really put yourself out there. So why the dirt path for you?
Yeah, man, been on this mission since 2018, bro. Like, the world is fiending for more light, more love, more transformation. I want to be one of those people that creates that. That's a leader for our society of like, hey, there's another path that you can take. And within that path, you can create a life that you truly love. I don't think a lot of people know that's an option. And so that's what we're building.
Love it, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Dirt Path podcast. You can find any links to support or follow today's Trailblazer in the description below. If you got this far and really liked today's episode, it would mean a lot if you could give us a 5 stars wherever you found this podcast, subscribe and like on YouTube, and email us. Email us at thedirtpathpodcast@gmail.com to give us feedback, to give us an update of you on your own dirt path, or to send us questions, as we might be doing some Q&A episodes in the future. All right. We'll see you next time here on the Dirt Path.
Saw the exit sign flash by, a whisper in the breeze said take a chance, don't wonder why, just follow where it leads. Oh, the dirt path, it ain't easy, no map to guide the way. Slow and hard, sometimes uneasy, you stumble through the clay. No signs to tell you where you're bound, no traffic to obey. But every step on broken ground builds something great someday.